So just how Apple completed their transition from Intel to M-powered computers and laptops now with the Mac Pro getting the M series chip, Apple quietly created a similar transition with the iPad lineup, where they adopted that industrial design language from the 2018 iPad Pro, and finally with the iPad 10th generation they have completed the transition, because if you look at the iPad lineup from a visual standpoint, aside from the colors and things like that, they look all identical, just in different sizes, right? You have the big 12.9-inch iPad Pro, all the way down to the smaller 7.9 or 8.3-inch iPad mini, but they all feel the same, they all look the same, they have the same design language, so Apple, it took them about 5 years to do, but they completed that transition. And what we've noticed with the iPad lineup is that Apple puts everything forward on their iPad Pro first, because that is their latest and greatest, their most expensive, the one that's really pushing the envelope. So now, it's got me thinking that in 2024, probably in the first half of 2024, we will be getting a new iPad Pro with some sort of design tweak and some new features that are definitely worth talking about. So in this video, I want to talk about everything that we know about the rumored 2024 iPad Pro, which could come as soon as spring 2024. Let's get into it. So when the 2018 iPad Pro released, it was met with a lot of awe, right? The design was amazing, the power that it came with the A12X was kind of unheard of and unseen, especially in the tablet world. So when Apple released that, it was a big shock to the tablet ecosystem, because that tablet could compete with laptops at that similar price point, depending on your workflow. Now with the 2024 iPad Pro, I don't think we're going to see that type of leap in power, that leap in kind of awe factor, because we're in a situation now where Apple is pretty much content keeping things relatively the same, tweaking maybe 5% here, 5% there, but they're not going to try to reinvent the wheel. What they're doing is clearly working. So leave a comment down below about what you think with Apple's current situation when it comes to kind of the innovation or the lack thereof when it comes to their products, at least from a hardware standpoint. And that's not to say that Apple's not going to add some new features to this iPad Pro. So the first big rumor that we're seeing is that Apple's going to transition away from the mini LED display and go over to an OLED display on the iPad Pro. Now the reason for this is because technically OLED is still probably the cream of the crop when it comes to the king of all displays. It doesn't get much brighter, it gives you the most contrast possible, so the blackest blacks and the whitest whites, so you're able to kind of see everything in between, and the colors are just a little bit better than what mini LED offered. With mini LED, the display was a lot better than what we had previously, but again, if you guys remember, especially early on when it first released, there was that blooming issue. Again, it wasn't a huge deal, but everybody on Twitter was kind of calling it out as like, wow, this blooming issue is going to be so annoying, but in reality, it wasn't really annoying, and we really haven't heard about it since then. But it will kind of alleviate that blooming issue. Now, there are some cons with OLED displays. That there is that burn-in situation where if you leave it kind of in a static page for too long, it will leave a little bit of a hue of what you were looking at previously, but again, OLED is still the cream of the crop when it comes to actual displays, and that should be coming to the 11 and the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. And now that same display transition from a mini LED to an OLED is going to allow Apple to make, in theory, the iPad thinner. Now, they could make it thinner, or they could just add more battery and keep the same thickness. For the iPad Pro, I kind of hope they add a little bit more battery instead of making it thinner, but that is something that they're going to have to decide, right? Because mini LED displays versus OLED displays, the OLED display is a thinner technology, so it allows for more room inside of the chassis of the iPad, which ideally will allow us to fit a bigger battery, but Apple could go the other route and just make it a little bit thinner for maybe something a little bit lighter, because the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, for me personally, it's very rare that I use it as a tablet where I just hold it in my hand and kind of just use it in my lap or something like that. It's usually always on a Magic Keyboard or always on a stand like I have behind me. And then to keep talking about the displays, there is a rumor that Apple's working on an even larger iPad, so maybe a 14.3 or a 15.9-inch iPad, because people, especially in the design world, that use it as an actual digital canvas, or even people like myself that use it more as a laptop replacement with the Magic Keyboard, could use a larger display. Just like we wanted a larger display on the MacBook Air, people want a larger display on the iPad Pro. So this has been rumored for a while. Apple could definitely bring this out, but again, definitely make sure that you save money in your wallet, because this thing is not going to be cheap. If we have an OLED kind of 15.3 or 14.9-inch display, something along those lines to kind of get to that form factor, it's going to be expensive. And my thing is, I think it's going to start maybe at like $15.99 or something like that. But that is a rumor that could be coming. So we could have an 11-inch, a 12.9-inch, and then somewhere between a 14 and 16-inch iPad Pro. And let me know in the comment down below, are you somebody that wants a larger iPad Pro? For me, I mean, I guess I would like it because of the way that I use the iPad Pro, but I haven't been like, oh, I wish I had more screen real estate. But again, if there was a larger iPad Pro, I'd probably go out and get it to replace my 12.9-inch. The next thing that we're seeing is that Apple is working on a new back panel for the iPad Pro, because they are actually making the switch from a metal backing, which I think is made out of aluminum, but now they should be switching it to a glass back with that same kind of matte finish. So the idea is that it's still going to look metal, it's still going to kind of maybe feel metal, it's not going to leave any fingerprints, but it's going to be glass, which will allow for, wait for it, MagSafe charging. So there was kind of a debate on what Apple would do with MagSafe charging. Are they going to do the MagSafe version that they do on the laptops, or are they going to do the MagSafe versions that they do on the iPhones? I think they're going to go with the iPhone version, because why else would they have a glass back? And I'm sure it's going to have some sort of integration with the new Magic Keyboard, where the Magic Keyboard also acts as a kind of MagSafe puck in the rear, and that's how it charges itself wirelessly. So I think wireless charging will finally come to the iPad Pro. And I think the iPad Pro is going to be the first Apple device to allow for reverse wireless charging, because think about it. Such a large battery, and if you use it in conjunction with your iPhone and your iPhone runs out of battery faster, just slap your iPhone on the back of the iPad, or even your AirPods Pro on the back of the iPad, and then you're charging. Because I'm sure the battery on the iPad Pro could charge AirPods Pro, 10 times over, if not even more. And now this last thing is more of kind of like a wish list that I want. I think Apple should and probably will release a new Apple Pencil, right? It's been 5 years since the Apple Pencil 2 was released, and for the most part, we've had a couple of little new features pop up in the settings, but nothing crazy. It just allows you to maybe pick a new tool when you double tap. And then obviously with the 2022 iPad Pro, the M2 version, we got the hover feature with the Apple Pencil 2, which is cool depending on how you use it, but I wouldn't be running out to get a new iPad Pro just solely for that reason. But again, I think Apple needs to create something new with the Apple Pencil. Give me an Apple Pencil 3 that has a couple more controls, a couple more customizable buttons. Maybe you can use the eraser part as an actual eraser, or you can use it as a shutter for the actual camera on the iPad Pro if that's how you use the iPad Pro. But I think Apple, when they added the new hover feature to the 2022 iPad Pro, it kind of gave us a little bit of a foreshadow that Apple could be working on even more features for the Apple Pencil, because think about it, it's still $130, it's 5 years old, and does pretty much the same thing that it did in 2018, which is not to say it's anything bad. It's a great accessory. It's one of the first accessories I recommend to people, although there are some cheaper alternatives that do pretty much every single thing, which I'll link down below if you guys want to check that out. But overall, I think Apple's going to revamp that Apple Pencil and bring us something brand new when it comes to actual features and functionality. So that is everything we got on the rumor mill of the new iPad Pro. In terms of release date, I believe it's going to be coming in the first half of 2024, kind of probably in the spring time frame. Apple usually has a keynote in like a March event. They could announce it then and then 2 weeks later release it, because I don't think they're going to change it too much. Like I said, the main things that are going to happen are OLED is definitely going to come to the iPad Pro. That's the number one rumor. That's the number one thing that Apple's working on. And then also we could get some wireless charging. We could get a thinner chassis or a thinner bezel as well if Apple wants to kind of go that route. And then of course, the big rumor that I want to happen is a larger iPad Pro, just for the option. Like, the optionality will be great to have. And then when it comes to pricing, I believe Apple's going to keep the same pricing for the 11 and the 12.9. They'll probably upcharge you $200 or $300 for a larger one. But the biggest thing that I want to know is, will Apple keep the 128 gig baseline version, or will they give us 256 baseline? Because we're now in a situation, or now in a time, where everything is huge when it comes to files, especially if you're using Pro RAW footage, or if you're taking a picture in RAW and the image is 150 megabytes. 128 gigs in a Pro level device, in my opinion, is not enough, especially when you have the MacBook Air at what I think you can get the M1 MacBook Air for like $800 or $900. That comes with 256 gigs of storage. So give us 256 on the iPad Pro to start off, and then maybe give us some optionality on how much RAM we can get, right? 8 gigs, 16 gigs, 24 gigs, just like the M2. And then who knows, maybe Apple will use a 3nm process from the iPhone, which they're going to release with the iPhone 15, and port it over to the iPad Pro. But that is everything that we know. Leave some comments down below about what you would want out of your perfect iPad Pro. Do you own an iPad Pro? Is that something that you want in your arsenal? Let me know in the comment down below, and I'm always excited to discuss in the comments. But that's going to do it for this video. If you guys want to watch more iPadOS, macOS, or iOS videos, click on one of these right here. And until next time, I'm Fernando. I'm out of here. Don't forget to check out our Discord. I'll link it down below if you guys want to check it out. We're definitely open to discussion. We talk to everybody on there. Definitely sign up for it. It's free. Peace.